This is the Reds Down Under podcast, the best place to follow the Reds in Australia. Enjoy the show.
We are the Reds Down Under, and this is our podcast.
Right, Neil, thanks for coming on, mate. It's great to have you coming over to Australia as well in the next couple of weeks. Mate, I'd love to start with a question which pubs to me and Jack are very important to us, right?
Yeah.
We both like a nice pint before and after the game, which is hard in Australia, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, the times were 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, we still managed to get it in.
Sometimes.
We still managed to get it in. But I wondered, when you go to the game, mate, in Liverpool, when you go down to Anfield, what's the best boozers for people to go? So if people come over from Australia, where would you recommend them to go for a pint?
Oh, they should go, directly around the grounds before, what's going on around Anfield Road, Taggy's Hotel Anfield and a couple of the other venues, because there's so much overspill between them because they get so busy. I think if you were coming over from Australia, I'd recommend that massively. It's an unbelievable party that's been developed down there, and I think it's huge credit. It's organic. This, it's sprung up around the club, and I think that the club respect it, but it's not really anything directly to do with them, and they've got their own stuff that goes on around the ground as well. And then there's all the sort of classic pubs like the Albert, the Solly, and the Glenbook. We go to Glenbook afterwards, and people are always welcome if they come over for a home match. We will be in the Glenbook after the game doing our work, audio and video stuff that we do. And if anyone wants to come in, that's the place to come and say hello. Not just to me or to John or to Craig, but to a ton of Anfield Wrap contributors. People head down there afterwards. So I would say beforehand in Anfield there, and then in town. Listen, I'm adamantly of the view that pound for pound, Liverpool's the best city possibly on the planet to go for a drink in at the moment. So I could rather than even individual places, I can just name streets where you can within a square quarter mile, you'll go a long way to find a better variety of places to have a good time. All the area around sort of Seal Street and Bold Street now, there's so many fantastic places that I really like going to on a regular basis. But it's not just limited to there. The best thing about Liverpool, I always say, in terms of a night out the city, is you can change your night out at the drop of a hat. You go to other cities. I always feel when I'm in London, at night, I think London's a great place to go out in the day. But at night, I always feel a little bit like you've got this feeling like the better night out's happening somewhere else because it's so big. And then you go to somewhere like Manchester, which is a good night out. I'm not going to do jokes. But you'd always feel as though because it's quarters, you're in, wherever you are, you're sort of stuck in that bit. Whereas in Liverpool, you can decide to have a night out that's all pubs and then just sort of change and go, you know what, we're going bars, we're going clubs, we're going music, we're going dancing, we're going for all that vibe. And you don't really have to change where you're walking to or from because everything's just sort of in together as a big mishmash all the time. And that's what I think makes it great. So you can just, you can shift to fantastic cocktail bars if you want. You can just, whatever it is you're doing, you can just go and do something else, which I just don't think a lot of other cities have the same luxury of, and certainly not to the same quality. So, no, it's a great place to go out. It really is. And when people are over, they should take advantage of every second of it.
I was back in December for a couple of weeks. I got to the... what game did I go? It was the only game we won over Christmas.
You went to Wolves, didn't you?
Went to Wolves. We went to Playa Suites, is it? Yeah, is it the Playa Suites? Just at the back of the ground. I'm sure it's called the Playa. But we always used to drink in the King Harry, didn't we? That was the King Harry. Was always our pub. Like the Arkle's a bit when we were kids with me dad and whatever, but the Harry always seemed to be ours. But you're so right. Like Liverpool now there's pubs everywhere. Like there's always boozers everywhere around town. The amount of things that have turned into like class little pubs now in town. And as you say, just that, like the thing about distance.
Yeah.
Like, we were up by like Castle Street and walked up Bold Streetways and Seal Streetways. I remember being younger and being like, they're on the other side of town. We're not going to make it there. It's a 12-minute walk. You know what I mean? Like, you can make it there. You can make it there.
Yeah, no, that's a big part of it, and just sort of naming that there, you can just, you just said a couple of streets. There's now unbelievable restaurants and food on Castle Street and good bars sort of circulating around that, but you can just from nowhere decide, well, these are good bars and these are classy joints, but let's go to Croc and do the karaoke with Jimmy. and it's top notch. You know what I mean? And it's a completely different experience. You've got the Lion, that's just by there as well. The Lion's a cracking old pub, but you can move from places like, for instance, unbelievable tapas restaurants, classy cocktail bars on Castle Street, but you go literally a 2-minute walk and you've got these grand old pubs that are bouncing around the place as well. And that's what I mean about the change of pace. I just think it's brilliant and a genuine, as I say, it's not being disrespectful to other places. There's a reason though why every week getting off at Lime Street on a Friday, there's people from all over the country coming in to go and have a night out in Liverpool, and the reason why is because I think it's the best one.
You're making me so homesick.
I know,
Sorry.
yeah. Leave it out, Neil.
Sorry.
Take me home with you when you come over. Take me home in your suitcase. Might be over 23 kilo though. and I tell you what, mate, me and our kid are a bit prone to finding the places with the karaoke normally.
For sure.
When we go out in town.
Spot on. Loads of options there as well.
Yeah, try and stop us. We're back in. I'm getting married in June, so we've got
tremendous.
some nice days planned on the island of it all.
Yeah, plenty of
And
Guinness.
just a wedding in between, you know.
Yeah, I know the wedding's getting in the way, isn't it? Mate, obviously, look, you're like us, and obviously you're a big advocate for the city of Liverpool. It's such an amazing place. One thing I was wondering, mate, is so I love going to Anfield. It's one of my favourite things in the whole world to do. But I really loved going the away games and the crack that's associated with that. It's a different sort of crack. Like if I had to put you sort of, in a life or death situation, which one would you pick if you had to pick one, Anfield or a good away day?
At the minute, Anfield, I've not got to as many aways this season as I'd like, and there's been a couple of reasons why. Some of it, weirdly, people would find a bit odd if I say it's work, but it's a little bit of that as well, because there's loads of brilliant things about doing the Anfield Wrap, but there's times where one of the things you've got to be able to do is post-match be able to produce shows. And, I mean, Liverpool now don't go back to London this season unless it comes in the Cup. Or it could come in Europe, I suppose, as well. But I mean, Liverpool haven't got a European League, a League London game left. There's a trip to Brighton on the horizon. But you've got to be able to find somewhere to record and then find some way to get you and the people that you're recording with home. And that's just been a little bit tough this year. So I've missed aways. Like, we're recording this on the day of Sunderland, and I really wanted to go to Sunderland. But I had a ticket, I had it all sorted, but I just couldn't work out how to do a show afterwards, and I was trying for days. So I'm finding that a bit of a blow at the minute. But all of that said, I think you love the adventure of the away, and you love the getting in and the getting out, and I love staying over wherever possible. I'll stay over. At the end of last season, I had one of the best weekends I've ever had supporting Liverpool when we went to Brighton when the title was won. And genuinely, it felt like a European away. I think we were there for like 4 nights in the end or something. I ate unbelievable food. The sun was shining. It was May. We're right down on the coast. Honestly, it was the business. But Anfield is your bread and butter, and I think, in a lot of senses, Anfield's your bread and butter. And what we also had last season with the league title win against Tottenham, and then the lift of the trophy, was a genuine, unfettered Anfield celebration in a way that, I think you didn't quite know what it was that you'd missed and how much you'd missed it until it came. And that's a funny thing to sort of look at it, but there's people who've been going for, I'm 45, but there's people who've been going for 15, 20 years longer than me who were saying it's the best day that Anfield's ever seen. So getting to be part of that just really rekindled the idea of, no, this is our place, and it felt so good. So those 2 days at Anfield last year, but also the ones that you get along the way, you can take them for granted, but you shouldn't. Most things that are great in football are mostly won at home. Away records are there to be suffered through, and hopefully, you see your team do the business. But if you want to win anything, if you want to win a European competition, yes, the final will be abroad, but you need to be doing the business in your home legs. If you want to win the league, you need to be winning 16, 17 games at home. It's home where you do the business. So I think that is, that has to sort of remain the place to be. But, give me an opportunity to go to Wolves, have a great day, get a late train back. Of course, we'll all have a ball.
Yeah. The away games, mate. Like, it's such when you're going home and away, and I know what you're saying with when you've got a podcast to produce there, and it's different for us because the timings of the games, and then that means that I'm actually recording the podcast the next day rather than at 4:00 in the morning because no one would want to listen to that. But when you're in that cycle and you're going home and away, maybe you're Europe in there, home and away, you're in like a constant. It's like you're in transit.
And it's like a trance state you go into because it's just going and going and going.
Yeah,
and going, isn't
Yeah,
it?
like I'm going home to get a new polo, you know, and then I'm going somewhere else, you know.
Go back years. I remember I got to loads and loads of games home and away treble season, and I just remember that sort of run of, you know, Palace into Leeds, into Man City, three games, 2 of them away. Palace was at home, but Palace in the League Cup second leg, batter them, go into Leeds, 4th round of the FA Cup, and it's one of my favourites ever away days. I think a lot of people who were there, it's one of theirs as well. 2 late goals to win 2-0, and then a pretty horrible little game at what was Main Road, where I think it finishes 1-1. But I always remember, like you say, the rhythm of that was, it was like, as you say, being in a trance state, just sort of bouncing from one into the other. And they're the seasons, you know, it's interesting, I've sort of focused back there on the treble season. I went loads in 02, 03 as well, when we couldn't win a game for 3 months. But you don't remember those ones as being in a trance state. You remember the ones that always end up, you know, with wonderful glory at the end of them. I'll talk endlessly about how brilliant it was at Southampton away in 2019 when Salah breaks through and scores to make it 2-1 when we hadn't been very good. And it's one of the best ends I've ever been in. You know, Southampton away theoretically shouldn't be that. That should be a Leeds or an Everton or a Man United. But it was unbelievable. But then the next game is the one against Chelsea where he bangs one in from 30 yards. And when seasons kick in and click in like that, you know, I think they are the moments that feel absolutely fantastic. And when you do sort of, you know, you get that run, getting to go as a supporter and being dead lucky to do so, when you get that run of game, it feels fantastic. It really does. Especially though, as I say, if the Reds are doing the business, because no one is sat around writing poetry about Vitesse Arnhem at home in 2002, even though we did win the game 1-0. It was a tough time. That was a tough trot, but you've got to accept that. Obviously, you've got to take the rough with the smooth and get stuck in.
I was just thinking there, like, my favourite period of like going a lot was like 2017, 2018. And that feeling of like the game every few days and one of the like big run in the Champions League at 2018 and all that. But my question, I suppose, is I know how I felt with my mates going to those run of games, right?
Yeah.
So for you, when did the Anfield Wrap become a thing? Were they the lads you were going the game with?
Yes, some of them. So there's some people who do the Anfield, who were on the Anfield Wrap, who, you know, I've known for 20 years, and there's some people I've got to know sort of from around 2008, and then there's some people who I've got to know since we've started doing it, or got to know better since we've started doing it. So you know that, and then got to know really, really well, become really good friends with by virtue of doing it, and also by virtue of enjoying seasons like 17, 18, like you mentioned. You know, a load of us went over to Roma that year. In the wider context, there's a fair few games that season that I can, you know, remember being at and having a ball at, all the way through. So, you know, I think again, to talk about those runs, I remember that, you know, in that little run there, you had. I think you have City in the Champions League. Then there's a horrible 0-0 at Goodison, but then there's going and winning at City 2-1. And then there's a game against Bournemouth at Anfield. And then I think there's a bit of a mad game against West Brom where their keeper ends up coming out or something like that. I remember being at all them as a back-to-back little run, a back-to-back adventure. I'm feeling great about that. So, you know, I think you get those runs and those moments, but with then we'll have been doing the work straight after the game and being able to pull it all together. So, you know, I think that is a big part of, you know, it is a big part now of what I've got to do, and that's absolutely fine. As I said before, there's so many things I get to do that are remarkably fortunate, but you've just got to occasionally bite into that and accept that and go from there.
Yeah, it's funny what you're saying about these memorable places that you remember, because like there's so many great games I was at that I really can't remember until something crops up on the podcast, or I'm speaking to someone in the pub over here in Cheetahs or whatever. Someone mentions a game and it sparks a memory. I always remember like stupid moments like 2013-14 at the Hawthorns, and Colo Torre loses the ball to Anachibi, you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like it's moments like that stands out for me.
Just on that, I remember. So I had a band rehearsal that night, and we had it on screen. So watching the game, and you were at the game. You were at the Hawthorns, and you rang me up on your way home, and you just went, "What the fuck was he doing, Jack? What the fuck was he doing?"
I know, and you know what? You wouldn't get a bigger advocate for Colo Torre than me. I loved the guy. I thought he was absolutely great. But that question you asked, Neil, about the sort of the start there of Anfield Wrap was something Max said as well, who's part of our team. I've got a question for you, Neil, from one of our regular listeners, Big Rig.
Big rig.
Big Rig's not his real name, it's Damien, but his tag is Big Rig. Who's your favourite unsung hero for the club?
I think you end up with different unsung heroes in different periods. There's off the pitch, and people like Peter Robinson, who still remain sort of, not sufficiently respected for being part of the process that pulled Liverpool into becoming one of the biggest clubs in the world. On the pitch, there's different players in different eras. I still think Gini Wijnaldum, who is there from Jurgen's first summer, is, I think a little bit overlooked when we go through that period, and understandably so. He's seen more as a moments player, whereas that ironically isn't really what he was. He was there to lift and carry the whole team every week, and then he also delivered moments. What a way to be. So you think he was so important to that side for that long, and I think he really removed his own ego. He was an attacking midfielder for Newcastle and for his country, and for Liverpool. Again, when he needs to be an attacking midfielder and produce, he did. But he spent a lot of his other time sort of grafting away. And I think there's been a few players down the years who've fallen into that category of players who've turned up, realised the best thing they can do is pass the ball to Steven Gerrard. I mean, that's a metaphor, but if you sort of see what I mean, he's brilliant. I thought I was brilliant. I've been bought because I was my club's best player. I've come here. I play with Steven Gerrard. He's better than me. I'll give him the ball. And I think that players understanding that at the right level, backing themselves, but also knowing that there's players that you work the ball to when you play for Liverpool is really, really important. So, I think there's a couple of players like that down the years. I think you can look at. You can go back to Kenny's great team and end up talking about Ronnie Whelan or Ray Houghton. I think you can look at, as I say, sides like Klopp's sides and talk about Gini Wijnaldum in that period, and I think he's a good example. But I think Adam Lallana, both on the pitch and off the pitch, supposedly as well, really important, was a massive part of the first couple of years of Jurgen on the pitch. But then I think his impact off the pitch was huge as well. And then I think you can sort of have a little look at seasons like last year, where I think a big part of how Liverpool are able to achieve what they achieved last year, and this would not, and at the time would not have been a popular point, but I think we can see it a little bit now, is actually the contribution of someone like Darwin Núñez, who also really understood that Mo Salah was the best player and gave everything. I think there's loads of last season that's epitomised in the goal, the equaliser that they scored at Arsenal in the 2-2, when no one's played that well. It's a tight game. They're a really good side. We need a result. And Trent plays a fantastic ball down the right-hand side that's almost got backspin on it. And live, you see Salah should go after it. Normal, or Salah of 4 years ago would have gone after it. But Darwin Núñez does his running for him. Gets there first and then breaks his back to turn it back into Salah's path in the middle of the goal. And Salah slots and it goes 2-2. And that is, that's the brilliance of Trent and the brilliance of Salah, but it's the sheer industry of Darwin. And, I think that there's loads of reasons why Darwin burned everyone's head out. I think he burned Jurgen Klopp's head out. I think he burned Arne Slot's head out. But I think he you know, you look at moments last season, and not just the big moments, but he would do and when he did my head in was when he was terrible, when he came on at games like Wolves, where he wasn't running anymore, when he'd stopped trying because I think he thought, well, it doesn't make any difference. I'm not getting picked because of this clause thing with Benfica. So I don't want to act like he was perfect, far from it. I hated watching him miss chances as well. But players who, there's a thing where they grab Nunez, and someone says to him, like when he's away with Uruguay, and someone puts a camera in his face and they say who's better, Ronaldo or Messi, and he says Salah. And that shows that idea of, I've gone to this club. Maybe there was a bit of a theory that I was going to go and be a big superstar, but I've come in and he's the big superstar. And I've got to accept that, and I've got to go with that. And maybe Darwin even accepted it a bit too much. But I think that that's an important part of football at the highest level. You know, even a really good example is Suarez was unbelievable for Liverpool 13-14. And I think there's an argument, there's a period where Suarez could be the best player in the world. But when he goes to Barcelona, including when he's at Barcelona, he realises, no, my job is to score goals, but it's also to work for Messi. Because Messi is the most talented footballer in the world. So I've got to do his running as well as mine. And I think that is something which, you know, that's the very, very, very highest level. Suarez is one of the greatest players ever to play for Liverpool. He's produced one of the greatest seasons any Liverpool players ever produced. But give him the opportunity to carry Leo Messi's water, he says, yeah, I absolutely will, because he's that good. So I think that those are the players that I always feel are unsung, the players who do the work to allow the best players to show the very best of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you need players in your team who are going to do the ugly work for you. It was something interesting you said there, Neil, and you were talking about Darwin, and he gets asked that question about Messi, Ronaldo, and he says Salah, and he's, you know, he's obviously quite vocally putting Mo Salah there up on the pedestal as the best player at the club. Obviously, things aren't working out so far this season for Liverpool. It's been a tough year, but there's been a lot of change. Is it possible that because we have signed Florian Wirtz, potentially one of the best upcoming players in the world, we've signed Isak, who was one of the best strikers in the Premier League, and we're still hoping is going to be one of the best strikers in the world. Is it possible in your mind that these sort of personalities are upsetting the apple cart with Mo up there?
I don't think they're upsetting the apple cart, but it's obviously, Liverpool have obviously made 3 signings, because I think you've got to include Ekitike. That's the beginning of the process of changing where the focus of the attack is away from Salah. So, you know, I don't think it necessarily even needs to be personality based. It's just a bit of a reality. Liverpool have, there's loads of ways in which you can just argue that Liverpool's number 9 has been Mo Salah. Liverpool's striker has been Mo Salah. He just plays off the right. And whenever you look at like average positions on stats stuff, Mo's pretty consistently since 2017 in terms of who gets the ball where, being the furthest forward to get the ball on average playing for Liverpool. It's Mo Salah. He might just be on the right, but he's still the furthest forward. So he's the focal point of the attack. Well, if you spend, you know, effectively 300 million on 3 footballers who all play through the middle, I think that Ekitike and Wirtz could well be comfortable playing off the left, but I think they are sort of players who will play through the middle ultimately. Then you are saying, well, we're not having that fella who plays on the right be the focal point of the attack anymore. I think that's a lot of change at once, and I'm all right with it in a way. I don't want to sound like that's a criticism, but I think that you therefore you've ended up creating a little bit of a mini contradiction, because you've given Mo Salah a lot of money to stay, but you've also then simultaneously made these other changes that have also cost a lot of money, as I say, which is the thing that will succeed Salah, or we all hope will succeed Salah, because of the commitment there is to it. So that's a little bit of a contradiction, but I think Liverpool were trying to ride, and they failed for a variety of reasons, some of which, you know, as a tragic element to it. But I think Liverpool were trying to ride 2 horses at once through this season, and I think they also felt there was just an opportunity. I think they felt that they could get the best up and coming centre forward, and they could get the best possible centre forward. And they ended up saying, well, if we can do that, let's do that, because you don't know when those opportunities will come around again. Where I think there's a little bit of an issue is that I think they were, and I don't think, if I say led a merry dance, I don't really think it was any sort of grand plan. I think there's a number of things that have undermined Liverpool's season. As I say, one of them is deeply tragic, but another one I think is the fact that Isak isn't isn't through the door till the 31st of August. And the manager does not have a fit player, basically. I don't think since Isak's been at the club, I don't think you could describe him as more than 90% fit, if you're being generous. So we've ended up effectively taking this gamble on Isak for the 31st of August that I think has undermined the whole season. Now, that doesn't mean he won't go on to be a really good player for Liverpool. He may well be, but I think that's had ramifications all over the place. So you've got this knock-on effect, really, where you've sort of said, well, we're not going to worry too much about wide areas this year, but you've not got strength and depth through the centre. So, well, that doesn't work very well. So you've got no strength and depth in wide areas, and you're trying to remove the focus from wide areas, but you've got no strength and depth through the middle of the pitch as well. Well, that's really hard then to navigate through a season. So I think that's where they've ended up. And listen, I think you could say, I think there's an overarching, I hope Liverpool review what they've done and ask a few questions. You see a lot of people, Arne Slot's one of them, he's not the only one. Managers will talk about the importance of pre-season. Jurgen used to do it all the time. Jurgen used to say, we want to do all the business early. Liverpool didn't. And I wonder whether or not Liverpool's season will be in much better nick if on the 1st of August they'd have said to Crystal Palace and Newcastle, we're not interested in Mark Gay now, and we're not interested in Alexander Isak. We're going to come back for them next summer, but we're not interested now. Because we're making perfectly reasonable offers, and you're saying no, or you're saying, well, let's wait, or you're saying we need to get replacements in. Well, we're not doing that now. We're going to go elsewhere, and we're going to go in a different direction. And that's not to say that was good. They would have had to compromise on quality, but I think that they ended up backed into a corner with both of them. And I think both of them have undermined this season. As I say, I hope next season Alexander Isak scores 40 goals. Liverpool are in fantastic nick, and it looks like, well, it was one of them, he had to put up with it. But I think that's a massive impact on this season, that Liverpool allowed themselves to be taken to the wire for both of those players. They got one at a massive fee who's never been fit, and they never got the other one, and they've ended up woefully short in defence.
Oh, absolutely. Like, just on signings alone, defensively, we are crying out for a centre back. It's been a tough season so far for sure. Just on us spending money, and it kind of brings us to a question we both wanted to ask it anyway. Do you think because Liverpool and Klopp, and be that like under the Edwards regime, Edwards version 1, if you like, at Anfield, and with Klopp and how we did our business, and that was so settled in its way, and like we would only sign the player we wanted, we wouldn't back down and go for someone else, like 2 or 3 on the list and whatever. Do you think that has effectively changed the Liverpool way? And do you think that is a side product, giving the fans a lot of frustration because it's not how we usually act in the transfer market?
I don't know, because I think Liverpool, how far do you want to go back? Liverpool used to break the British transfer record when Bob Paisley was manager. I think Mark Lawrenson was a big British transfer record signing, and he was, much vaunted. And by the way, was absolutely fantastic by all accounts when he gets in and plays for Liverpool. Stan Collymore was a British transfer record. I think if you said to Rafa Benitez, you can have your first choice player in any position, well, he'd have said, well, that's great, I'll buy Gareth Barry when I want to buy Gareth Barry. He spends a lot of money on Fernando Torres. He wanted Florian Malouda. We can all remember that he wanted Malouda, and Chelsea got in ahead, and he was annoyed because he thought Liverpool were too cheap and too slow in that period. And you can, I think what Malouda does at Chelsea, you can look at his record, look at his medals, you can see why it was that he wanted him. So I don't know if you can sort of define around that. What I think is a little bit different is, I think Liverpool, what they do the first time round, Edwards is at the club, and with Klopp and with the restructure of how they were going to do the transfer business, it's worth remembering that we can be annoyed now, but they were coming at that from a position of how to take a team that was finishing 5th, 6th, 8th and get them to first. And every decision was made with that in mind. Well, I think Liverpool, whether I like it or not, because I'd rather, I think you can make a really strong argument, as I said a minute ago. One of the things that most annoyed me in the last few weeks was the attempt to get Gertrude in. And the reason, late in the January window, and the reason why that annoyed me was he was actually available on the 30th of August. We know he was available on the 30th of August because he goes to Sunderland on the 31st of August. So are you telling me Liverpool couldn't have done that deal? But I think that there's this real desire at Liverpool to buy players who are genuinely excellent. That's what we do. We only buy players who are genuinely excellent, or at the very least genuinely excellent, outrageously good at one or two things. So someone like Frimpong has got a really clear set of strengths on the one hand. He's got clear, visible weaknesses on the other, but these really clear set of strengths that are exceptional, that we think practically no one else on the planet can do. They're worth getting after. And that goes all the way through to someone like Florian Wirtz, who's clearly, got it in his locker to be one of the all-time greats of the game. Whether he'll make that, that's a separate conversation, and you've got to get medals if you want to be called that, but he's got it in his locker. What I think is hard is that there's a lot to be said. You started this off asking me about unsung heroes. There is actually a lot to be said for someone coming in and doing a bit of a job to help all these other lads out a bit. So Liverpool could have got Gertrude on the 30th of August. Liverpool end up trying to get him and failing at the end of the January window. But there was no reason not to have done that. If you're going to end up in the situation where you need that player and you're going to make a play for that player, but you could have got the same play. It's not as though it's a player who, has just signed for Manchester United and it'd be impossible to get him under any circumstances. But then there's a sudden chance. Leipzig were trying to offload him at the end of August and Liverpool didn't have enough defenders. Yeah. That's, I think, where supporters can get frustrated, and I get frustrated. That makes a ton of sense to me. But I think it is different now, and I think it is a different challenge. And I think you've got to respect that challenge because, to not do that isn't giving the people who I think have got things wrong a fair crack of the whip. I think it's all right to say you think people have got things wrong, but I think you've got to accept what it is they're trying to get right, if you see what I mean. You can't just sort of end up listing footballers and go, a really good example is they didn't buy anyone last summer and everyone remembers that and says, that's part of them just accepting the reality they were in. Everyone forgets they agreed a fee or paid the release clause for Zubimendi. They were prepared to buy Zubimendi last summer. They wanted him, and look at him now, and he looks a really good player. And, but everyone sort of glossed over that because it doesn't suit the mythology of Arneslot came in, Liverpool weren't interested in anyone. That's nonsense. They literally agreed a fee for Zubimendi, and they just couldn't convince him to sign on the dotted line at the end of the day. And you can see he's a really good player, and would he have added something to us? I think no shadow of a doubt he would have done. So I think a lot of this is, you've got to say, what are they trying to do? And what they're trying to do, I think, is sign genuine excellence. But I just think every now and again, you can't go too mad on that because you'll end up missing the opportunity to ensure you've got a functioning squad. And as the Premier League gets harder and harder and more intense, you do need to be able to pick really fit players every single week. And Liverpool have simply not been able to do that this season.
Yeah, we've definitely been thin on the ground, and from my perspective, I thought I agree with what you're saying, Neil. The clear position from Liverpool is we're going to try and get the cream of the crop in every opportunity that we can to take the football club forward. For me, it was clear that we needed a player like a bandage just to come in and help. I'm really emotional about this, Neil. Help us get to the end of the season. Jack, one thing you said there in that last question for Neil, you talked about the Liverpool way. You were talking about it from a transfer perspective. More generally, Neil, the Liverpool way is something which, that term itself holds so much sort of mythology. And when we were kids, my dad would talk about the Liverpool way, the Liverpool way. What does it mean to you?
It's bullshit.
What?
People only talk about the Liverpool way when things aren't going well. If people start to talk about the Liverpool way now, I'm even more concerned about the position that Liverpool are in. People used to talk about the Liverpool way, and listen, we used to do it on the Anfield Wrap. It used to come up under, the back end of Kenny's time in charge, Rodgers, whether or not X, Y, or Z was the Liverpool way. No one talked about the Liverpool way when Jurgen Klopp was manager. No one did. No one talked about it anymore. It completely passed away as a conversational point because we were winning, and there was not a new way of doing things, there was just a good way of doing things, some of which will have lots in common with the way Liverpool used to do things in the past. But, I think there's a conversation about what you want Liverpool Football Club to be culturally more off the pitch than on it. But, what is the Liverpool way? Well, Jurgen Klopp's teams would often finish top of the Fair Play League. Graham Souness would break people's jaws. What is the Liverpool way? What does that actually mean? Both of these teams were successful. If you want to say maybe the Liverpool way is that players are aggressive and they get up and get after the opposition and all of that sort of stuff, well, how does that differ from what Everton supporters want? It's like when people say of Newcastle, the thing about Newcastle is they really love a number 9, as though there's football supporters around the country who go, you know what, I'm not that into strikers who score loads of goals. It's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. And I think that the Liverpool way thing becomes back. And if you're not careful, you end up sounding like Manchester United. I've loved United consistently getting back into every conversation that is had has to be about what truly is or isn't Manchester United. You only start doing that when you're not winning. The more you're not winning, the more that stuff comes up. The more that stuff comes up all the time. When you're winning, no one asks what the Liverpool way is. So I'm very strongly of the view, as I say, no one asked whether or not Jurgen Klopp was a follower of the Liverpool way, or what he was doing was the Liverpool way, or the way in which he wanted to replay the game against Tottenham after there was the incident with Diaz was the Liverpool way. No one mentioned it. It never came up. So I'm very much of the view that you do that stuff when you're worried about the culture is when you begin to talk endlessly about the culture. When you've got a good culture and you're in the flow of that culture, you don't even think about it because things are good and things are positive and the football club's successful. I want a successful football club, so I don't want to have to dwell on, and these are great men, by the way, in so many ways, but I don't want to have to dwell on what made Shankly particularly special, because I want to go and watch Liverpool play and I want to watch Liverpool win. I want to watch the club be really, really successful. And the more you do that navel gazing stuff, as I say, it's important to have things that make your club special. That's not my point. And I think that Liverpool is the most special football club in the world. But I think you get tangled up if you're not careful in trying to take lessons from the past, which may or may not have validity, but are mostly down to doing the right thing in the right moment. And you've got to assess that moment and then go and do the right thing.
Okay, Neil, so what I'm trying to ask is, what do you think the Liverpool way is?
Neil, that answer was not the Liverpool way.
I'll be honest, that was
No, it's not.
That was not. Do you John Barnes?
There's no way I'm doing
Do
a
you-
John
do you John
Barnes.
Barnes?
No, you've got absolutely no chance.
Yeah, John Barnes saying we used to just play 5-a-side every day. That is not the Liverpool way, mate.
Well, they're the sort of things, though, isn't it? Yeah, these are the sort of things, Neil.
He's dead right, because it's like the overlap every week. It's like, this wouldn't have happened under Alex Ferguson at Man United. Like, it's constantly.
Yeah.
You're so right. These are the things that come up when you are in a bad period.
Guardiola will leave City and something, and if the money begins to slow, it'll never dry up. But if the money begins to slow a little bit, and they have a couple of seasons of coming third, everyone will be saying we've just got to get back to what we were doing under Guardiola. That's what everyone will start. So we've got to get back to what we were doing under Guardiola. Not we've got to deal with the reality of the situation that's in front of us now. We've got to get back to. Now, listen, that's not to say you can't learn from the past. Of course you can, but you can't be nostalgic about it. You can't give it a hazy glow, as though everything was all absolutely perfect. To give a really intense example, and I'll gloss over it relatively quickly, but there's a number of people who are still quite resentful of Liverpool Football Club's off-the-field reaction to the Hillsborough disaster, who feel as though the club corporately could have acted much differently and much better. Get to what happens in Paris and the way the club stuck up for the supporters and made it crystal clear and demanded answers there and then. Well, one was during the very height of Liverpool's success. And here, by the way, I do not mean Kenny Dalglish, who was a man who was beyond reproach in that period, absolutely incredible leader of supporters and making demands. But there was a feeling that the club, in the sort of long run and the immediate aftermath of Hillsborough, did not do enough for the people who got caught up in it. And again, I do not mean Kenny and I don't mean the players. But in 2022 in Paris, which was nowhere near as bad, was pretty bad, but obviously nowhere near as bad as that much loss of life, there was a feeling that the club did do everything that it could do to respond accurately and all that sort of stuff. The challenge that's in front of you, you can learn from the past. You can learn how to do it better from the past. You can take things from the past, but that means you've got to have a really clear-eyed assessment of the past. Things were not always incredibly rosy around the football club. The football club's the most successful in English football history. We've won the Big Two on 26 occasions. But the club's been going since 1892, and I know the European Cup hasn't. That's a lot of years where Liverpool didn't win anything. A lot of years where Liverpool didn't win either of the big two in there. So, I think that you can always respect, and you should respect and admire what's gone on in the past. But what you shouldn't do is become utterly obsessed with that we've just got to take from the past. Every opportunity, that the only answer ever exists is in the past. It doesn't. It might exist from the outside. It might exist internally now, but you've got to push it forward in the moment. We can improve on what's gone on in the past as well. There's loads and loads of bits and pieces which I think you've got to not You've just got to not get caught up on. We just used to play five-a-side thing, but what's dead interesting about that is there were things that Shankly did when he first got into Melwood. David Peace's book on Red or Dead is quite funny with it, where there's this day where Shankly wakes up and he says that the players just aren't accurate enough with what they're doing around goal, and they literally build what became known as the sweatbox to improve passing and shooting. And they build it out of wood and paint, and they put it in Melwood, but there was nothing like it. There was nothing like it up and down the country. So what's that an example of? Just because it's done with wood and paint doesn't mean it's innovative. They throw the balls in and tell them what numbers that they had to hit, and it sounds dead basic now, but they were at the forefront. Liverpool Football Club was the first club in England in the top flight to have a sponsor on the front of the shirt, an Hitachi. That's commercialism. That's Liverpool commercialising ahead of their peers. And now people would say, well, is the club too commercial? Do we need to worry about this or this? And that's been an attitude that's held the club back. You could argue at times in the past. But Liverpool, so is that the Liverpool way? Is intense commercialisation the Liverpool way? My God, imagine going and saying that today somewhere around Anfield, that people who want to slit my throat off the back of sort of arguing that. But that's what the club did. So what bit's the Liverpool way? And the truth of it is, it's just trying to make the best decision in the interest of the football. If you want me to try and do it in a sentence, the best decision in the interest of the football club and all those who sail in it in any given moment. That's the Liverpool way. But what does that actually mean? You'd like to think that that's what organisations like Liverpool would want to do full stop anyway. But so I think that's what makes this really, really hard. And if you're not careful, you end up with a rinky-dink folk song version of what it is to be a Liverpudlian and what it is to be a... And folk songs are fine, by the way. They've got the place. We're singing them on the terraces every week. But in the reality of looking after a football club in this moment, a huge, complicated football club, Shankly knew it was harder than that. Shankly knew it was harder than that. You can't get carried away with nostalgic nonsense. You've got to be at the forefront of the present, and if you're not, then you won't win.
Yeah, evolve or die. It's like what you were saying before about like the Liverpool running two horses, you know, with the Salah issue and then the contract and changing how we play. But if we don't evolve and try something and try and make the best decision in that moment, you die, don't you?
That's true. That is true. But I know football is a intensely competitive sport, right? And it's a massive business. But there's no doubt a romanticism that comes with being a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, there is.
So there are things that are important to us, aren't there?
Yeah, but we embed them, and also there's an element of, well, we've got to look after them, if you know what I mean. And we've got to therefore put pressure on the club to ensure that they're not doing things that remove and make that harder. You know, the club's got to not make that stuff harder, because that is a big part of that. But also the club knows that, like, literally there's a reason why, you know, the club puts the parades in videos that it shows prospective new signings. You know, come and play for Liverpool. Well, where's one of the reasons why? Well, look at this, because they're not doing this for you anywhere else. You know, and that's us. That is, you know, I've always found there's a bit of a conflict between the club consistently talking about the use of, and people can have any opinion they want on this, but the club voicing negative opinions about people using flares and smoke devices, and yet when the club puts promotional material together to do with supporters, it uses the ones with the flares and the smoke devices in. You know, there's literally...
He put hundreds of them up, didn't he? On the dock, didn't he? On the stands, on the parade.
That's for the parade, but even around matches, when you clip stuff from matches, the club uses that stuff because it looks great. Now, is it safe? Almost certainly not. Should it be allowed? You know, I think you end up with a balance on that, where arguably, no, it probably shouldn't be. But the club still goes and does that and uses that in that way. But that's because they're taking that sort of romantic stuff. There's, you know, and even within this, let's use the Salah thing as an example. Let's go back to the on the pitch stuff. You can genuinely make an argument that Shankly would have given Salah another deal and that Paisley would have got rid of him. And the two of the great managers in the history of the football club, I suspect Jurgen Klopp will have been absolutely made up. He didn't have to make the decision and didn't have to be part of the decision, genuinely, because Klopp, I think, falls between those two stools. But like the stories of Roger Hunt being substituted back when you only had one sub, being subbed towards the end of his career and going berserk at Shankly on the bench because he couldn't believe he'd take off Liverpool's greatest ever goal scorer. Who did he think he was? There's a great story of Ian St. John that I always cite, that the play, you know, and this is the change in football, but the club used to buy Christmas dinner for the players and give them the turkey, and the best players got the biggest turkey. And one year Ian St John got a smaller turkey when he was coming towards the end of his career and goes and finds Shankly and holds the bird in front of him and says, "Is this what you think of me? After everything I've done for you, is this what you think of me?" You know, the game's the game. And one of the things that the game is about is getting unbelievably talented young men in their 20s, making them feel top of the world, and then having to deal with the fact that you've got to look after them one way or another when they're 32, 33. The game's the game. That stuff doesn't change. What we've got to do is make sure that what makes Liverpool special to us in a global sense, we've got to keep that at the heart of what we do and not compromise on that. That's our responsibility. And I think we do. I'd like to think that the very huge collective we, I mean, not me personally, but I'd like to think that we do a really good job of that. That's the stuff that really matters and what it means to each other and what it means to our interpersonal relationships and our lives. We've got to keep all of that alive. But what we can't do is sort of think that there's you know, we can't get obsessed and caught up in the yesterday, other than as something that you can analyse and laugh about and, yeah, remember fondly, but you've got to be able to move forward.
Yeah, we've got to keep moving forward. And I think one of the criticisms, mate, about Liverpool when I was young, you know, when Moore owned the club and people said it about Liverpool being run like a corner shop, and Manchester United was in the middle of absolutely transforming into a juggernaut. Now, Neil, we do a thing every week on the weekly show on Reds Down Under, and we do trivia.
Okay. I'm psyched.
Normally I ask the questions, but we thought it'd be fun this time if Jack wrote some questions that obviously I don't know the answers to.
Okay.
And me and you are going to go mono a mono. The first question is, what's the Liverpool way?
Yeah.
So we're going to throw a quick cut in here. I'm going to get a drink of water, and when we come back, it's Reds trivia.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Take It to the Max. It's Reds Down Under versus the Anfield Wrap.
How's Neil feeling? Feeling confident, Neil?
Not really, but I'll let's see how we get on.
All right. Question number 1. What is the Liverpool way? All right. Pens and papers for everyone at home. If you're driving, just pull over or scream or just scream at Spotify.
Yeah, do it safely. Yeah.
Your podcast. Right. Question number 1. Who provided the cross for Dejan Lovren's dramatic winner against Borussia Dortmund in the Europa League in 2016? Who provided the cross, the assist for Dejan Lovren against Borussia Dortmund in the Europa League in 2016? All right, question number 2. Against which team did Mohamed Salah register his first hat-trick in a red shirt?
Oh, that's hard.
Question number 2.
That's hard, that, Jack.
Against
I know I
which
said
team
make them hard.
Did Mo Salah register his first hat-trick in a red shirt? Insert elevator music.
That's hard, that one.
That's a tough one, that.
This one's hard.
Okay, I think... Oh, no. Hold on. I've changed my mind. All right. Okay.
Question number 3. Name all 5 of Liverpool's European Cup winning captains. Name all 5 of Liverpool's European Cup winning captains.
Yep.
Was that number 3 or number 4?
That was number 3. Oh,
I've got about 7 wrote out here just in case.
I'm still going here because I'm dyslexic, Neil.
Don't worry.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Against which team did Daniel Sturridge register his first Premier League goal for LFC?
That's
Against
acceptable.
which team?
Taking us all the way
Daniel
back to
Sturridge
2013. That's 13 years ago.
You know what? I'm 50-50 on this one, Neil.
I'm surprised. I'm impressed, to be honest. His first goal. I'm still trying to go back to remember the period. He signs early in the window, I think. So it's January.
Just remember, Iago Aspas is like about to explode. Who scored the first goal of the Jurgen Klopp era at LFC? Who scored the first goal of the Jurgen Klopp era at LFC?
Complete guess, this one, our kid.
Alrighty.
I think the Sturridge one, I'm sure it was away, Neil. I seem to remember him wearing like the dark kit,
Yeah.
but I
yeah,
don't know.
okay. Okay, so go on. How do you want to do this with the answers?
We'll alternate. So
Line-
you do the question, and then Neil
Yep.
do the first answer.
All right, question number 1.
Yep.
Who provided the assist for De Wijnaldum?
James Milner.
James Milner.
Correct. 1-1. Question number 2. I should have wrote these in a better order. Was it the Salah one?
Yeah.
Salah hat-trick.
Who did Salah get his hat-trick against? First hat-trick for Liverpool.
I said Watford.
It is Watford.
Watford, yeah.
Oh, I love the transparency, Neil. That's good, that.
Yeah, that was good, that. he hasn't wrote anything down for the captain, that was. All right. The
captains.
5 captains.
Emily Hughes lifts it twice. Phil Thompson, Phil Neal, Steven Gerrard, Jordan Henderson.
Tom?
I said Emlyn Hughes, Phil Thompson, Gerrard, Hendo, and Souness.
Yeah. Phil Neal never lifted it as captain.
It's me being very confident of that one. Phil Neal doesn't lift it. Souness, good God, of course, at 84. It's mad I got that wrong. Go on, 1 behind.
And the final question?
No, question number 4.
I don't usually do this.
Come on, question number 4.
Who did Sturridge get his first goal against?
I said Man United.
I said Sunderland.
It was against Man United.
Oh, brilliant. I think I've lost.
Yeah. And question number 5. Who scored the first goal of Jurgen Klopp here at LSC?
I've just gone for Divock Origi.
I went for Lallana.
Emre Can.
Emre Can.
Emre Can. Congratulations.
Go on, how did you do, Neil?
Well, I've got I got the captain wrong, didn't I? I went for Neil rather than Souness. I was convinced it was Neil. I could see it in my mind's eye as well. So I've ended up with only 2 correct: Milner and Watford.
It's not a bad goal. These quizzes.
Yeah, no, I'm all right with it. But now I'm a bit annoyed I'm annoyed with the Souness one. I'm not annoyed with not remembering that Sturridge's first goal came against Man United. I had no sense of that whatsoever. I've completely forgotten that. Whereas I have watched Graham Souness lift the European Cup a lot on video, so I should have remembered that one. I think I remembered Neil's goal against Roma rather than anything else. But yeah.
Graham Souness better looking by far. Tom, how many did you get?
I got 5 on this one. So
Did you?
yeah, I'm really happy with that. So there you go. Reds Down Under versus the Anfield Wrap. This time we come out on top. Neil, we've just got a couple of quick questions, mate, before we let you go. The first question's from Stephen in Perth, and he says that you always come across like you'd have boss music, like you'd be a boss music journalist too. What's your favourite bands?
Oh, Jesus. My favourite band ever in my life is probably still R.E.M. Growing up, listened to them a lot, loved them a great deal, and still listen to them now. Love LCD Sound System, of more sort of recent stuff, listen to them a lot as well. But, I listen to loads of stuff, trying to think of what my Spotify Unwrapped at the end of the year is always quite varied. So I listen to loads and loads of still what you call pop music. I love the Charlie XCX stuff from a couple of years ago. I've actually just opened my Spotify there to see when I was last playing. It was Renaissance by Beyonce the other day when I was just sort of mooching around. So, but yeah, but for instance, I'm also listening to Zexy's Midnight Runners a bit at the minute too. So all over the place, but ultimately, in terms of bands that, you always, the bands that you loved growing up, R.E.M. were definitely one of them for me.
Brilliant, mate. And something that I really wanted to know, I thought we've got Neil from the Anfield Wrap on, let's get a bit of knowledge out of him, you know what I mean? And Neil, we've got plenty of people who follow the podcast who are content creators over here in Australia and around the world. And I wondered if you could have a piece of advice for us all, based on the great success that you've had with the Anfield Wrap. What piece of advice would you give the rest of us?
I think the best thing you can try to do at all times is remember that what you're doing is for people to enjoy, and it's not for you. So I think if you're trying to build your own I think it's important to be authentic. This is not a don't be authentic point, But the best thing that ever happened to the Anfield Wrap was we did some radio shows with Radio City Talk, and they became live shows, and it really helped us find a voice and a way we wanted to articulate what it is that we're about. So being able to do the serious stuff, but being able to do it in a way which, you know, you don't leave people behind. And then when you go very serious, when you have to, then they come with you a lot more. I think it's important to remember that you're in a competition for people's attention with everything. You know, it sounds like a mad sentence, but you're in a competition with Grand Theft Auto, with Fortnite for people's attention. And yes, different ages have different interests, but when people are spending time with you, they could be doing anything else. So there's you've got to have a sense of humility in that, but also you've got to want the thing that you're doing to appeal to those people, and having a sense of what appeals to those people. You know, different segments have different things. I'm sure if you were making a science-based podcast, then what those people really want is different to what people want from a football-based podcast, don't get me wrong. But I think bearing that in mind and having the sense of who's your ideal viewer or who's your ideal listener and remembering them, I think is really, really important.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Well,
Before we let Neil go, I would like to say it on record. I want to thank Neil, and I want to thank the rest of the guys at the Anfield Wrap, because when they were over last time, they came to Sydney, the podcast was only a week old.
Yeah.
And I reached out to Craig, and he was like, yeah, no problem, you come down, you can do an interview with one of us. Like, it was absolutely no problem. And Craig's been great as well, you know, reach out and ask for a bit of advice and everything. So genuinely, mate, from us, thank you so much for supporting us.
Craig's the business, the absolute business. And I think John did the interview with you. You know, John loves doing all that stuff as well.
John's my old mate as well.
Yeah.
From so I don't know if he still does it, but this is like 2017. He do the stuff with City Talk.
Yeah.
And he get like local bands on, and he had us on that. And I always remember from that interview, the new main stand had like just opened, and we were just looking from the tower. We were like, massive that, But yeah, no, John's a cracker of a guy as well. So yeah, no, thanks for all the help. Thanks for giving us your time as well with this, man. Like, we can't wait for you to get over here and
have a pint with you.
Have a pint.
We'll see everyone. Be a big week in March, and hopefully Liverpool are in the last 8 of the Champions League, and they've got themselves sorted out in terms of looking like they're going to come forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got me toes crossed, lad.
Yeah.
Neil, thanks so much for joining us, mate. Up the Reds.
Up the Reds.